we talk about transition so like nonchalantly, like an English gentleman sending his regrets, like, oh, I think I'm going through a bit of a transition. That's a terrible English accent. I don't know if that's English, but it's my best shot. But right, we talk about transitions like they're so light, like they're so easy, like, oh yeah, it's just a little transition, no big deal. No, it's intense. Do you know what the introduction to the word and the whole concept of transition was for us? Birth. That was the introduction to transition. And although I don't remember my birth, thankfully, I have experienced 2 births now, very firsthand with my 2 daughters. And let me tell you, there's nothing light and merry about birth. My wife wasn't, saying, "Oh, I think the baby's coming out now." That was my English accent again. No, she was saying some other things and some very different accents when that baby was coming out. And that's when I realized that for the first time, this was the first realization for me that you can actually start crying, throw up, and pass out all at the same time. I didn't know that was feasibly possible. But it's intense. They actually call the last phase of birth the transitional phase. And it's the most violent, difficult part for both the wife, the mother, and the baby when that happens. And so I guess I'm saying all that just to couch that transitions are very, very hard. And I think for many of us, whether in our 20s, our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, it doesn't matter. We go through these seasons and cycles of transition, right? Whether it is like a tangible breakup with somebody that you've been dating, or you're maybe even married, or whether you get fired, or maybe you move cities, or maybe somebody dies, or maybe you get sick, or whatever it might be. There are stark transitions. But there's something of strange importance that happens to us when we're stripped of everything that we used to depend on. When we're kind of taken out of those comfortable places. When we're taken out of those seasons where it all just kind of made sense. And I had the answers, and I had the good grades, and the success, and all those things. There's something of real importance that happens to us when all those things are kind of stripped away. And it can be intense, it can be painful, it can be a season of a lot of questions. I think for 20-somethings that say they're going through a quarter-life crisis, I know I felt like I was going through that. I always joke about a quarter-life crisis and thought it was such a joke until you're actually going through one, right? Because it's very intense. But it's really, I think, just a season of transition. But for anybody that's going through transition right now, I would just say for all of us, just to be really intentional in that transition process. Don't try to rush through it. Don't try to get to a place where it all makes sense again, or you feel normal again, because maybe there's a new normal that's getting created. You can't go back to that old relationship. You can't go back to the way it was. You're in a new season and you're moving forward, and there's going to be a lot of angst with that. But just like a tree, I literally just spit onto the camera lens, and so it got a little fuzzy. That's better. What was I saying? Just like a tree, stay with me, I'm almost done. Just like a tree that's planted, right? And it starts to grow, but maybe it's in a pot, right? And it needs to be transplanted out of that pot. Because if it stays there, the roots won't have enough depth to grow. It has to be moved. It has to go into deeper, better ground. And I think sometimes even, that's what happens to us. I think God, seriously, I think God cares about us too much to let us just stay in that pot, to stay in that comfortable place. He cares about us so much that he wants to move us and transplant us into better ground. But that process of being transplanted and finding depth in this new place can be very difficult. So be encouraged. If you're going through a transition process and it's hard, that's the new normal. That is normal. It's the normal. Feeling very abnormal can be the new normal. But don't rush through this process. Marinate in it. Ask the right questions. Be intentional. Be purposeful in the process.